Welcome to another edition of Chai with Molly, a show where we celebrate diversity the Canadian way. I want to begin this program by wishing all of you a very happy new year. I trust you had wonderful holidays, time with your family. As this new year begins, from all of us here at Chai with Molly, we want to assure you that we're going to have lots of wonderful programs in store for you. Stay with us. Please join me in welcoming a very special lady to our studio today, Renu Mandani. She is the new Human Rights Commissioner in Ontario. Welcome to our studio.
Thanks
Renu.
for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
First of all, I want to congratulate you on
you.
this appointment.
Yes, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the Human Rights Commission. What is the mandate of the Commission? And just so for the sake of our viewers, because many people don't really understand what this office is and what it really entails.
Yeah, sure.
So why don't you tell us a little bit
Okay,
about it?
so the Human Rights Commission is one part of three different bodies that make up the human rights system in Ontario.
Okay.
So our mandate is to look at persistent and systemic discrimination and use our legal powers and our public education and monitoring powers to make systemic change. So the other two pillars of this system are the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. So as you can imagine, that's administrative tribunal, like a court, where people can go and complain directly about treatment, discriminatory treatment in employment, housing, in contracts, in a union. And then we have the Human Rights Legal Support Center, which is essentially lawyers to help people make complaints to the tribunal. So what's really different about the Commission is we're really focused on the big picture, on the issues that maybe can't be resolved through a complaints mechanism, but really need something more systemic to be addressed.
All right, so what are some of the common complaints that the Commission gets on a regular basis, just for the sake of the viewers who don't really understand this?
Yeah, so I mean, most people in Ontario will probably have heard at least about the police carding issue.
Yes, that was huge.
Yeah, that's huge, and we're still working on that. So that's an issue where you can imagine it's an issue that affects racialized people all over the GTA, in many other, provinces, but also cities. And it's not something that can easily be resolved through an individual complaint. It's a really systemic issue. It really at its core is about racism in the police force. And so the Commission has been working really hard, both with police to offer them the kind of training they need to understand systemic racism, but also advocating quite strongly with the government to put more limits on when police can card individuals. So those are the kinds of big issues that we're working on.
All right, so also tell us what are some of the issues that the Commission will not entertain? Because I know a lot of people, sometimes they feel like, well, somebody said something to me and I didn't like it, so I'm just going to call the Human Rights Commission and complain on them.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so two things. First of all individual complaints go to the tribunal directly, so we don't actually see them unless they raise some sort of systemic issue, in which case we can get involved. But secondly, the Human Rights Code, which is the legislation that governs the human rights system, it really covers discrimination on a variety of grounds. Probably, the ones people can relate to are religion, race, gender, sex, and then it covers them only in particular areas. So in the areas of housing, employment, contracts, union services. And so it's really, we're not the thought police. People can sort of think whatever they want. It's when they take those thoughts and act on them in a discriminatory manner, that's when our system gets engaged.
Okay, so walk us through the process. So let's say an individual was discriminated against, maybe in workplace. Okay, so they call the Commission and they lodge a complaint.
Yeah.
And what happens from that point on?
Well, first of all, they would call the Commission, and what we'd say to them is, we don't deal with individual complaints, so you have to talk to the tribunal. But once they got to the tribunal would say, first, is there any internal mechanism within your workplace through HR that you could attempt to resolve this dispute. If that wasn't possible, you could actually, file a complaint. Usually you would want to have a lawyer represent you, but it's not necessary. And you would basically give that information about what happened to you. And then the employer would have their opportunity to, again, say what their side of the story is or their perspective. And you would eventually, if it got to that stage, you would go through mediation to try and resolve the dispute before it actually went to a tribunal. But then if it got to a tribunal, they would, hear the evidence and make a decision. So it's not meant to be an overly cumbersome process. It's meant to be quicker than a court. It's meant to be specialized. The tribunal is a specialized body, so all the tribunal members know human rights law inside and out. Okay. And so, most complaints are sort of resolved in a fairly expeditious manner.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that if somebody has a complaint, they should first resolve it at their workplace, because most places have some sort of mechanism. Yeah. And if it doesn't get resolved there to their satisfaction, that is when they should contact the Human Rights Commission.
Tribunal. Yeah. Yes. And so exactly. And there are situations if people are facing sexual harassment in their workplace, but they might not feel that they can go to their employer, or they might actually fear for their safety. And then of course they can go directly to the tribunal. But what we find is that in many cases, employers actually want to do the right thing.
Of course.
And so if you raise your concern and it's reasonable, they actually will try and accommodate your concern, because no one wants to be hauled in front of the Human Rights Tribunal.
Exactly.
And in many ways, that's one of the roles of the Commission. So we write policies. We've written many policies. Our latest policy is on discrimination related to creed or religion. And one thing that it gives is employers ideas of, if somebody comes to you and they pray a number of times during the day, or they follow a special diet, or they wear a particular clothing that's significant for them, how do you accommodate those things? So that we actually give the employers tools as to what am I required to do under law, and how can I actually do that?
All right. So let's talk a little bit about Renu.
Okay.
So tell us, who is Renu, and how did Renu get to be where she is today?
So I'm sure, like many of your viewers, I'm a Canadian, but I'm of South Asian origin. I'm a lawyer, but I'm also a mother and a wife, and so I think we all have so many different identities.
Yes.
I grew up in Calgary. I was born in Calgary. My parents were first generation immigrants from India. My dad came to Calgary to study at the university. He came in 1969. Oh, wow. So he was one of the first wave of immigrants from South Asia. And I look at Calgary now, and my parents have so many friends like of South Asian origin, and it's kind of remarkable because back then he would say he could count on a hand the families that were from India in Calgary. So I grew up in a really tight-knit South Asian community. We didn't have cousins close by, so for me, my parents' family friends were really my cousins, my support system almost. And that was a huge part of my growing up. I played the harmonium, I did Bharatanatyam. It was a really big part of my identity. I went to university in Ontario, so I went to do my undergrad at Queen's, and I never actually went back to Calgary, so I've been here for quite a while. I did my undergrad at Queen's, and then I went to law school at the University of Toronto. And then I did a master's degree in New York University in human rights law. And then I was on Bay Street for a little while before I actually ended up changing paths to more human rights related stuff. So I was a criminal lawyer, and then I was at U of T Law School, and then at the Commission. And I was
it's been
an
an interesting
winding road.
Yes.
Yeah, and I always tell, especially young people, that you can't really plan out exactly your path. You can just take the opportunities as they're presented to you. And I think it was really tough for my parents, especially when I was working on Bay Street, and for them, I had made it. And then for me to sort of say, actually, I want to go do this human rights stuff, I mean, they really didn't get it, kind of, why I wanted to do this. And then, you know, now after I was appointed commissioner, I had so many aunties and uncles and my parents like getting so many calls from people saying, oh, aren't you so proud of Renu? And I think they kind of were like, wow, you actually made it in this human rights field, even though they had really thought that I should.
And your brother's really proud of you.
Yeah. My brother's a doctor. So,
Yes.
you know, people joke that, you know, my parents got their doctor and lawyer.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
But you know,
any South Asian parent's dream.
yeah, exactly. And then, of course, my husband is a chartered accountant. So
Okay.
together we're like, you know.
We can manage it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I would say that, you know, my brother's a medical researcher and I'm doing this human rights stuff. So we've sort of followed our own paths, and it's been, it's not always been the path.
Who inspired you to follow this path?
You know, I don't know, because
human
rights. It's not actually a path where we see a lot of lawyers kind of going into that path, but I think more and more the younger generation really is interested in the human rights stuff. For me, a lot of it was, I don't know, I think I was just born with this really deep sense of justice. I mean, we traveled to India all the time and I saw the poverty, you know, the difference between rich and poor that's so stark, or was at least, you know.
It still is.
It still is, but, you know, at least now there's a bit of a middle class in India. But like, you know, in the early 80s, it was really stark.
Yes.
And then also, you know, as a woman, I saw some of the kind of gender roles and for men and women, and how kind of set they were. And I from a very young age, I always wanted to break out of all of these kinds of stereotypes. And so I think that's sort of the root of it. But the one thing I would say is my dad, you know, even though in many ways he was quite a traditional Indian father, he really encouraged me to pursue my dreams. And I remember when I wanted to go away to university in Kingston, and I was only 18 and I was a girl, and you know, my mom was like, no, you should stay home.
Typical Indian mom.
Yeah, exactly. Stay home. And my dad said, we let Piyush go, we should let Renu go. We shouldn't treat them differently. And that was really important to me. And my dad at a number of points in my life has really kind of been a champion for me.
Yes, that has to be there.
You need that family support.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I see a strong woman, I know she's had a great dad.
Yeah,
and a great relationship.
Yeah.
Because you see, that first affirmation comes from your dad.
Yeah.
So if your dads are supportive and they affirm you in the beginning, you know, that just sets you up for success.
And in our culture, often you know, if your dad isn't supportive of something, sometimes, you know, it's harder for your mom to kind of support you.
Yes.
And so I feel like that was really important.
What should people look forward to during your tenure?
Okay, yeah.
Are there some changes that you want to bring to the commission? Something that you're happy with, some things that you're happy with, some things you may not be really happy with.
Yeah.
I know that you want to be a hands-on kind of a commissioner.
Yes.
So talk to us about it.
Yeah. I mean, overall, the commission is a great place. It's producing really good work. I think if there's one area we could improve is, I think, just being more engaged with the public. So even talking to you is part of that, you know, just being out there, being a voice that people trust and that they see. And, you know, the best sort of saying I can think of is a watchdog. So people feeling this confidence that, you know, we're out there, we're looking, we're there, and if we see something that isn't right, we're going to use our voice and use our mandate. So bringing a bit of a bolder approach, I think, is something that I've committed to. And the last thing I would say is, you know, we're doing strategic plan. Like, I want to do a strategic plan, and obviously that sounds very boring. But what I want it to do is really actually to change the question to be, what do the people of Ontario want from the commission? Okay. Not what do we want to offer, but rather what do you want and how can we serve the public?
Okay.
Because I think in the end, the commission is really meant to serve the public, the most marginal and vulnerable members of the public. And I think we need to hear from them as to what they want from us.
Okay, so how are we going to get that feedback?
Well, so it hasn't been all rolled out or sorted out yet, but you know what I can imagine is kind of different layers. So obviously we'll be engaging with our staff internally, with our commissioners, and then with community organizations. So who are the groups that represent some of the marginalized communities, and we'll be asking them directly for their feedback. We'll probably do some sort of public survey, so you know, online, anyone can answer, that kind of thing. But then also working with police and government and saying, you know, what do you see as the role for the commission, and taking all of that feedback and kind of processing it into a really concise mandate. I think right now, you know, we started the interview with you sort of saying, I don't know that people know what the commission does exactly, and out of that process I really hope we can come up with something that really resonates with Ontarians so that they really understand what the commission does.
Yes, and that's what we try to do on our show, is to inform the public, right? Because what ends up happening, it's not like we don't have resources or help available. It's like we have almost too much help available. Just people just don't know who to go to when they need that help. And so is there anything else that you would like the public to know about that we have not touched upon?
Not really. No, I'm really excited. Like, obviously I'm a young commissioner, like a young chief, and but I want to bring some of that sort of excitement. You know, I just started on Twitter, so I'm trying to actually like really be kind of engaged at a level that feels accessible to the average person. And you know, in my short time, a lot of people have said to me, wow, you're like so down to earth, and you know, you're really easy to talk to. And I want people to feel like we aren't, you know, sitting up in an office building somewhere. We're actually like part of our community.
All right. Well, with that, we thank you so much for coming to our studio.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time, and we're going to have you back.
Apparently, yes.
We're gonna have you back, and we're gonna talk about some more issues that our viewers are going to really like. So if there are any questions that you would like me to ask her, let me know. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We have lots more for you in the store, so don't go anywhere.